we've only given that to about 50, a little over 50 forests. We still have a lot of work to do there to get the basics so we don't get the miscommunication and the misinformation that Q was talking about with, that risk management equals risk assessment and hazard mitigation. So are we expanding what we started with, I guess? Am I looking at this wrong? How does this tie in with what we originally have done and continue to work on? No one wants to touch that one.
Well, no, yeah, I just had to find the mute button again, Daryl. I think it's just a continuation. I mean, we can't accept some of the processes that we've maybe accepted or learned about if it doesn't make sense. And it's just like what Kurt is starting off. There is a lot of confusion and trying to create that atmosphere that we're truly discussing important aspects among the stakeholders. Because remember, the process we have now within WCTS is a pretty closed atmosphere. How do we include others in these direct, the upfront discussions with others and then trying to convert that into understandings or a sense of what it takes to, what have you identified as a value at risk, how valuable, quantify that value at risk, is it, what is it going to take to defend it, and is that a reality, and what's the probabilities there? And then going from that point and dealing beyond that with the soft values that are biting us in the butt, in other areas. But this is a place that we can tackle most of those values hard and soft, and get understanding and not be at the whim of the political world questioning how many gallons of retardant you can put on a fire on a given day. And also the firefighters have a good feel of how important this is, that there is a level of risk beyond the normal that they're taking today, because there is a true understanding of this value is exceptionally high. But that make any sense? But we need to continue with some effort because we don't have it as it sits. Some of our findings too, we got so many risk management or risk assessment tools out there. There's confusion of understanding what you're talking about versus the assessment tool that I'm talking about. And I'm out of breath now.
Thanks, Dan. Daryl, did that answer your question?
I'm not sure. It's somewhat. My point is, I hope we don't throw more tools we got tools thrown out there without an understanding of what risk management is, and we don't need to throw more tools on the fire without understanding why we're building the fire. So I hope we continue with our current sessions. And I don't know if this is added on or, again, some of this is a different audience even, how this works out, plays out. I guess we'll see when we get the whole package together. Just something to think about.
Hey, Daryl, if I had to sum it up, I'd say the risk management sessions we've been doing, the 2 days, or introduction, the theory of risk management with an emphasis on the communications part. What we're rolling out in 2013 is the next level, that more of a hands-on, using the risk management tools and actually learning how to do an assessment, the analysis, make a decision, communicate that decision. I don't know how else to sum it. So first session was a 100-level course, and this is a 200-level course, something like that. But you're right, though, in terms of if we haven't
that makes sense.
If we're going to a unit for the first time, we should be doing what we did last year. And we've talked about that within the Phoenix NIMO, because we're going to some of these forests in Southwest for the first time in next month, and we have to deliver what we've been delivering plus this 2013 direction. So we're looking at the 2013 as just the last part on the second day. You know, okay, hey, now that we gave you the theory, here's the practical stuff, kind of a condensed version of what you can see in 2013 and ways you can get started on this.
That answers my question, because we've got the whole east side that we have to do. We got to start.
End.
Yeah, good.
If I could just add on a little bit from looking at this from what the tasks that Curtis and I were given and bringing it into alignment with the direction from the chief's office. I look at that step along with what's been going on as trying to provide more context to the, whether it's the engine captain or the force supervisor, whoever it is, as to why we're doing these things and how it fits with the bigger picture of leaders' intent. So up and down the line, I know it's probably a little bit idealistic, but there's some level of alignment from the firefighter to the IC to the agency administrator and so on. And so whatever session or whatever level we're delivering to, whether that's a group of seasonal firefighters or a regional leadership team and of course FMOs, that we would convey similar messages.
Good. Okay. Anything else to add on Task 1 or Task 1.1? I figured this would be a lot of discussion because this is a big piece of what we do in spring. So, all right, hearing none, then we'll move on to the next task, which is Task 2, and that's establishing a yearly FAM staffing plan rhythm. And basically I'm just going to summarize this real quick, but what it comes down to is fire and aviation management, Tom Harbour and his staff, have also had a considerable amount of turnover, especially at the upper levels with their deputy chief positions. Dan Olson is now the new deputy chief over like state and private fuels, I guess it is. And then we have Deputy Chief over Operations, which is Bob Baird, and that's who we work under in the organization. And then a lot of their ADs are new as well. For example, Gage, and they have a few who will be retiring or have retired recently, like Lou Southard and Bill Waterbury will be retiring at the end, well, in June. So. So what they've decided is that there is a real opportunity to revisit how they function and kind of provide an overall standard operating procedures and way to prioritize and plan out and ensure that each one of their AD areas and program managers are focusing time and effort and money and resources into their highest priorities. And so they need help in developing that and finding out what that looks like, and that does include kind of a timeline of standing events or standing things that have to be taken care of, like questions for the record and budget and that sort of thing that can be triggered of time with different all the ADs and program managers to ensure that they're done in a timely manner. And it's like Christmas. They know it's coming up, so they'll take care of it in addition to all of the spot fires they have to put out in initial attack they're doing. So we have asked Anna Reed and Judy Palmer to step up as lead and co-lead for this. After we spoke with Bob Baird, Steve Gage, and myself had a discussion, and then we talked to the greater EC about it. We felt like they had the spunk and they had the skill sets to be able to provide them with the insight that they need to accomplish this. But this is a long-standing task in the regards to it's not go up to DC and write out a plan and 2 weeks later walk away. There is a huge process of discovery and development and then implementation in this plan. And so I guess I know Dana and Judy haven't had an opportunity to connect with Bob yet because our our scheduled call is later this week with him for them to get their formalized leader intent. But I'll open it up to either one of them to share with you any thoughts they may have regarding their task.
So this is Deanna, and I'll start. So Rob and I kind of outlined what the project is, and we have started working on our task team. We have talked to a couple folks about participating, but really we are not getting too far down the line until we do have our conference call with Bob to get leaders' intent and to clarify the task and the end state. So we do know that implementation isn't until fiscal year 2014 to start in October of 2013. But because Judy and I are both new to NIMO and haven't spent a lot of time back in Washington, D.C., we will be tapping, many of you folks that have that experience and have spent time back there, as well as we actually have several phases that we'll be going through with this project, and Robin alluded to that a little bit as well. But some of it's just, doing some interviews and finding out exactly where there's some issues, where there can be some improvements for effectiveness and efficiencies within the FAM program. So we will be talking with many of you in hopes to be able to get some valuable information as we move forward with the process. So again, we haven't gotten very far along, just mostly waiting for our conference call on Friday with Baird, and then we'll be able to move forward. So Judy, do you have anything to add?
Nope, Dana, I think you've got it all.
Good. Well, this is going to be helpful for NIMO in regards to, A, they're our bosses and we want to make them happy, but B, most of the lack of prioritization and knowing who's on first and who's working on what projects in FAM is a trickle-down effect, so I think this will be positive for us as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Robin, just coming from the field, I think it will be a trickle effect and can make a big difference for the regions as well, which then hopefully in turn can, we'll make some strides in that respect as well.
Yeah, I agree. Gage, did you have any thoughts before we move on to the next one? I know you've been heavily involved in this discussion, and you should see Bob Baird and Dan Olson's their face light up when talking about this. They're so excited about potentially, having this structure. So
it's
a task they're really excited about.
It is, because it's truly amazing how we get anything done without any, for lack of a better term, a calendar of what's due when. And there are so many things that come up that, it comes in, hits the office at Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and they got to have it by close of business on Friday, and it's like any budget changes you might have, we got to have it by, within 24 hours. And all those kinds of things, because somebody forgot about a date, when they needed stuff. So I think this is going to be really great if we can get everybody on track and moving forward and set the stage for success.
Good. So moving on to task 3, actually, myself and Quisenberry have been assigned to it. It's to coordinate and manage logistics of the Field Leadership Forum. For those who have been in and around NIMO for some time, this came up several years ago that the chief was going to have a leadership forum with all of the force supervisors across the nation, which is a big face-to-face meeting, sort of a second coming sort of deal. But they decided to kind of format it a little differently this year, and their approach was to do invite only to just various leaders throughout the organization at different levels. So maybe some district rangers and some force supervisors and that sort of thing. And the big question is, if it's handling the logistics, why is myself and Quisenberry assigned as the task leads? I'm sure that's what some people are thinking. But really, our role has been to assess and kind of deflect, maybe, as much as possible as of right now. So this was an inherited project from Steve Gage after he left into his new role. and he passed on to myself and Q. And so we've been working and coordinating with the Associate Chief, Mary Wagner, and some deputy chiefs regarding the forum. They didn't get meeting management approval for it, so we have had to explore alternate. And just so you know, there have been some NIMOs involved. Brent Spencer has done a lot of preliminary work for it to all get kind of swept under the rug. So I want to just acknowledge his hard work and role in that. We had a whole bunch of other folks on standby ready to assist at any point, but never had to get there or use them because the meeting management package wasn't approved. But they are still going forward with the forum. We're actually working with the Sustainable Operations Group and looking at a green meeting format and doing a primarily virtual component for the meeting with 42 different hotspot locations throughout the nation in a 2 half-day sort of format in early April, and then we'll do a closeout in September, and the chief and the associate chief are going to try to hit as many RLTs then between May and August as they can to do some face-to-face, and they'll have some homework assignments and that sort of thing. But what I have discovered in this process is there's some really cool stuff out there, especially from a virtual nature, that I think we can explore. And also, I know many of you are familiar with the Green Fire teams and that sort of thing, but they have a lot of new thoughts and ideas. And so at some point, once we get through the hump on this, I think the EC will probably try to set up some sort of webinar, optional webinar, for NIMOs to learn what is out there in way of technology that's already been approved by the CIO and what's available to us to make our virtual program, provide us more options and how to operate, and then also provide us maybe with some ideas that we could test out even for future sessions, like risk management and other sessions, so we can set an example within the organization that good work can still get done even in a virtual nature. And so that's my secondary goal from this project that we've taken on. But as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to have to tap into NIMOs because for our task team, I've found a whole bunch of people outside of our organization that are certainly much smarter and more and better in the virtual world than I think we have been able to explore yet. Plus, they have the contacts in the CIO world, so they know what's legal and what's not. So we can keep everyone posted. Mike, Q, do you have anything to add on that tasking? Q, do you have your mute on?
Robin, this is Steve. While Q's not coming in, just wanted to again thank Brent for all his hard work, and Iva really did a lot of legwork, her and Aaron, early on when we started with this project, and it was really going to be a monumental thing. So again, Brent, I think Sally may even touch this tar baby a little bit. So Brent, Iva, and Sally, and whoever else was involved, I reached out to before. This all started way last summer, so last spring. So anyway, thanks publicly to all you folks that helped with that. And, I think this next way will be a good way to go.
Thanks, Steve. I wasn't involved that early on, and tar baby was a good way to describe it. I couldn't think of a good descriptor for one of your projects. But that is, so as it turns out, actually, it hasn't been as bad as I had initially anticipated. But because I really did think that we were going to handle this, essentially handle an event of 300 people and have to pull it off logistically. So I'm going to unmute Q, I think. Q, do you have anything to add?
Now I can talk to you.
Yeah.
You had me locked. You had me locked.
It's a gift I
no,
wish
I don't
I
have
could
anything.
keep now. Okay. No,
Yeah.
you don't.
You have sole control. I don't have anything to add, Robin. I think we've, you know, like you said, we have learned a lot of different stuff, and you know, it concerned me initially because this thing had been going on for months, and then we, you know, kind of stepped in the middle of it, and it was amazing how organized those folks were without any outside influence from us. So I think we'll, you know, it'll be more of a benefit to us in sitting in on this stuff, because we'll maybe learn some of these new tricks and things that we can use just to benefit ourselves. So that's all I got.
Absolutely. Okay, good. Thanks, Q. Any thoughts or questions regarding the Field Leadership Forum? It's almost become a non-NIMO event outside of us. I'm still working along with Q to kind of carry forward facilitate, maybe is a better term, I guess, right? Facilitate the conversations between all the players in the virtual world, but I think we're in a good spot to move forward. Next, we have Task 4, which this one's another biggie and high priority, like quick. And so I'm going to just turn it over to Daryl Schwelling and John Giller. They're the lead and co-lead for it, but it's for 2012 fire reviews. And basically, it came down to a letter was sent out from Hubbard, Deputy Chief Hubbard, back in late November, saying NIMO was going to go out and conduct reviews on the following fires that you see on the screen. And it was pretty much brought to our attention late January. So we're shaking a stick and trying to look at how to approach these reviews, and I'll let Daryl and Giller fill you in.
John, I can swing first, and you can clean up the mess, if that's all right with you. John may be locked out too. I need that magic lockout button, Robin, that you can lock Q out with. That's something I need to have. So I'll have to get that from you.
John Giller is not muted, so he should be.
Okay. Well, this one, like Robin said, we walked out of the locker room and found the game was in the third quarter. They had letters ready to go out, and we got to ask immediately who our team leads were before we even knew what our mission was. So it kept it short and sweet. So we didn't really add anybody officially to our group, our task team, but we got a lot of outside input, mostly outside of NIMO. Robin helped us some, and we got some input, good input from Toddy Steelman and Sarah McCaffrey on some of the stakeholder and the social and political issues in decision-making part of this. So we're in pretty good shape right now. I think we have the Washington office identified reviews in the different regions they wanted done, and we assigned, John had a great idea that it needed to be an IC as the team lead on those, just for peer-to-peer with agency administrator, having some clout to that team. So our NIMO ICs all volunteered to take those on, and we've got those assigned. We've got a format. It's a little different review process. The Washington office is looking for ways we can improve, and not just, you know, how could the IMT done a better job. We have 4 objectives. Those are I'm not going to read them specifically, but they're built around identifying the best business practices that we used last season, identifying how social and political issues factored into our decision making, what current practices and procedures we need to expand or enhance on, and then what improvements can be made in sharing and clarifying expectations, which really ties back to task 1 and what Bob and Curtis are working on, I think, is how we can do better clarifying expectations. Sending out a letter, you know, does that make sense to people, or do we need to do more than that? So that's the type of things the review teams will be looking at. And and they're working with each region. They're not going in independently. They're working with the region to contact the force, make those contacts, and get started. And I think, well, I know Dan has already started following up on the CHIPS fire, and I think some of the other reviews, I think contacts have been made with everybody, and some of the reviews are in progress or will be this next week. So this one's moving along. The end state, I guess, would be that we have a summary of our findings to the Washington office with recommendations for lessons learned. So how can we do better in those 4 areas? And that will be carried forward into, we'll use this process as a starting point for continuing to improve the review process and make it something everybody is more comfortable with and make it a positive outcome rather than, well, you didn't do a very good job on that one. And so we're trying to build towards that, and the idea is that the 2013 reviews then will start to be a new format for these programmatic fire reviews. And this will also be reported to Congress because they ask, but that is something the Washington office has tasked with them and are doing these reviews. And so this will fulfill that task, and that'll be reported to them. John, anything, clean up anything or add anything I missed? Or any questions?
I guess I will say, you may have said this, Daryl, and I apologize. This is taking the place of the large fire cost reviews that Congress mandates the Forest Service to do. But I wanted to kind of give kudos to Ron Birch because he was the one who suggested this format to try to start educating Congress and even FAM that cost is an outcome. And if we make good risk-informed decisions, then the cost is just an outcome, and it would be appropriate regardless. That sort of thing, and use it as a learning opportunity. So I think it's a good approach. It's definitely a new approach, and this is what they're going to carry forward to Congress.
Hey, Daryl, it's Bill Honenberg. I may have missed it, but one of the charges, I think it's partly task 1 and also your task group, I think was to develop a process for mid-season or during season reviews, and I don't know if I missed you touching on that, or I don't know that I've seen anything come through. Have you looked at that any more in terms of process or format or anything of that sort?
We haven't, Bill. We were strictly focused on these programmatic reviews. We haven't focused on the during action or in-season reviews. If that was part of our task, we missed that one, or we may have input into it if it's somebody else's. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm not positive that it was. I'm just trying to sort out. I think it's, like I said, it's part of task 1, but I think actually when I look at the format for what you put together for postseason reviews, the mid-season review may be very similar, and that might be the answer.
Did I hear Daryl volunteer then?
Robin?
Yes.
This is Steve. One of the things that I've talked to Bob Baird and Barbara about a little bit is using some of the lessons learned from what we gathered here to help establish that mid-year. And on the slide coming up a little later when we talk about incident response and mission tasking and that kind of stuff, we'll talk about it. But one of the things that's been discussed is using NIMO to help the Washington office with some of these mid-year looks and look at some of the questions off of the chief's letter and direction. So, Bill, your idea is a good one. It's already it's in the works. So, and so we'll move forward from there. The other thing that this does is we were just getting ready to contract with a company to do a large fire cost review for in the tune of somewhere around $300,000 plus. So we're going to save that part. We'll get a chance to learn as we go along. And I would hope that if we get a chance to do this mid-season or postseason 2013, that we can expand our review teams to include other ICs, other operations people, because the folks that were at CHIPS when we did that, myself, John Giller, Kleiman, John Pendergrass was there, and Daryl from afar, I think we learned a lot about documentation. We learned a lot about decision making and how we document the decisions we make, and just the whole swirl around the aftermath of a fire that I think is a great education for other folks. So we'll move forward on that. So side note, Q, we've got the parallel team is in place, and we're just waiting back for Region 6 to give us a job code to move forward with those folks.
Good. Hey, Giller sent me a message saying he was having a hard time getting on, but you covered everything, Daryl, but I just muted and unmuted him to check it out one last time. Giller, you want to give it a try? Okay. I guess we're having technical difficulty, but he can hear you and said that you're on it, so no issue.
Okay.
Any questions for Daryl? I don't know why I couldn't think of your name for a second. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, this is Heaton. It's Heaton.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah, I'm not sure who to direct this to. Probably either Steve or Robin. So in terms of priority, it seems like everything's a high priority, and we're up to task 4 now. So if we had one day and had to work on one task, which task would it be? 1, 1.1, or 4? Because they seem, and just looking at the time frame, and this is all assuming that nothing's going to happen that requires NIMOs to activate and do incidents between now and, say, fire season hits.
So you're asking which is the highest priority?
Yeah, I'm asking for what's the highest priority out of the 4 tasks or 5 tasks so far.
And the answer is yes. That's a good question, Curtis, because I've been pinged about that a couple of times with people asking, so if we get pushed, where do we go? Again, I think this is going to be a test to our ability to divide and conquer and move forward. And what I'll need from the task team leads is, if you get into a bind, and not being able to get all the priorities and not be able to move forward, you need to let me know soon so I can move that up the chain. But know that this task 4 is a high priority on Hubbard's desk because it's mandated by Congress. The review of the chief's letter will be high on Hubbard's desk also. So we're just going to have to really take a hard look at how we prioritize what we get done and where we go. But I would think that as we move forward with the chief's letter, when that comes out, and as that mission task goes, if we are in fact going to complete what Hubbard wants to do, and that's to meet with the Type 1 and Type 2 IMTs and the line officers, we'll have to adjust our CI sessions until that gets completed and these fire reviews get completed. It's just a matter now of how we go about the IMT, and that may drop off the plate because the estimated cost to the SU budget was about $885,000 to get the 16 national teams and 65 Type 2 teams together, and that's a high estimate to discuss this stuff. So if I was going to prioritize my air assets or our time assets, I would say that this task 4 and that the chief's letter and getting the message out from that would be our top 2 priorities, and then we'll build from there. And that's as of whatever your local time is, 20-something after the hour.
Yeah, I've been asked the same question, and honestly, with 30 folks, really 30, permanent individuals within the NIMO program, although we do have a few vacancies, I'm confident that we can carry this forward because both the fire reviews as well as the risk management sessions should not be 100% NIMO. I mean, we don't want to shut folks out. So the fire reviews are going to incorporate individuals from the regions, and yes, take up time of the ICs clearly. In the risk management sessions, though I know the ICs want to be a part of that, it doesn't mean that they necessarily have to be. They have strong staffs within both the team organization and within the program that they can pull from and expertise. So I think we have the ability to pull both off, but yeah, I'm with Steve that both of these have been clearly slated as high priorities from the WO right now.
Thank you for the very, very clear answer. I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic. You helped. Thanks.
Okay. So I will say that brings up a really good point, though, which is one of the ones that I'm not sure we haven't run into the situation yet. But as we do these task teams, resource management is going to be huge for the EC. And as of right now, we believe that we can manage it if we have a program calendar, which I'll get to a little bit later. But we have to have a better grasp on what we're committing our time to, and for a number of different reasons. Just for resource management for these what's considered high priority tasks from leadership and others, as well as for us to have some accountability to say this is what we're putting our time and efforts towards, and this is how it supports FAM and the Forest Service. And that's strictly, and I don't mean to use this term, but that's strictly to make sure that our program stays viable and they see the most value added from a program like ours. So we've got to be able to have that. So the EC's got to step up, and we've got a bigger role in prioritizing and resource management, I think. Honestly.
Hey, Robin, this is Nick.
Yeah, Nick.
Hey, I think we have an opportunity here when we're looking at this Task 2 assignment to make sure that we incorporate that consideration as an annual recurring item. We're going to have reviews every year. We're going to have a program of work every year, and I think that's probably as important as the other recurring items. And the outcome of not doing that is equally damaging, I think. So we need to figure out how to work that into that task.
100%, I agree with you. Yes, for our program and others within FAM.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right. Any other thoughts on the reviews? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Robin, this is Steve again. Real quick, Daryl and John, on the Trinity Ridge in Region 4, I'll send you guys a note. There's some like lawsuit stuff working on that one. So when you coordinate with Region 4, whoever has the lead on that one, just be aware there's going to be some external swirlings with the Trinity Ridge, and it may get taken off the plate.
Hey, Steve, I've got that one. If you can, that review, if that's what you're referring to, if you could send it to Mrs. Bill.
Okay, I'll include you in the group email when we get done.
So just so I understood, that maybe get taken off the plate for the review? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's not been discussed yet. We just got the email like Friday late or Thursday late from the general counsel wanting any documentation, emails, logs of conversations regarding the fire for discovery stuff. So.
Fair enough. Well, I'm building the plan. I'm literally building the plan. So.
Yeah, I don't think we want to build more documentation to have to turn over.
Fair enough. Well, if you can let me know as soon as you hear, because I'm putting that together, how to get that done like today, tomorrow. So thank you.
Okay, and I think the region probably has the lead on that, but we'll chat about that off the call.
Okay.
I guess the last thing I want to include regarding the reviews is the fact that some of these reviews or some of the fires that were slated for review were NIMO fires, and in the future that's likely to be the case as well. There was discussion about potential conflict of interest and that sort of thing. And the way we resolved that is anyone who was on that fire, working on that fire from NIMO, wouldn't be part of the review team, but that the program could still go forward with the review from a learning aspect to actually set an example, actually, of how reviews can be conducted and how aspects that went well on a fire can be highlighted, as well as aspects that could potentially use improvement, and we could showcase how that can be done constructively, even amongst our own program, constructively and publicly, I guess, from a learning perspective. And so that's kind of the approach that's been taken. But as you look through these names, I'm sure that thought came up in folks' minds that, hey, some of these are NIMOs, and that has been addressed. And I'm confident that we're able to walk the walk and walk the talk, right? Something like that, and do that. So anyway, so I think that's been taken care of. Anything else on reviews before we go on to the next task? Okay, next on the list is training and workforce development. So this is a big one because training is such a big piece of what NIMO does or has done, and that's all been part of this building capability and capacity. There was, and I didn't necessarily outline it all on the slide, but there was a few things that this group has been tasked to do because we need a better approach, set criteria in what training we take on within the NIMO program as for us to conduct, as well as some consistency in delivery, like let's say Type 3 training and that sort of thing, and some incorporation of out-of-the-box or innovative approaches to move forward within the fire organization. So we've tasked Bruce Palmer and Terry Knopf as lead and co-lead with this, and so I guess I'll just open it up to either one of them to share their thoughts and where they're at right now.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Our first step in accomplishing this was to send out a short questionnaire to all 4 teams through the ICs to get a sense of how many trainings have actually conducted, how many they've been asked to do and have not been able to accomplish due to shortage of staff or lack of support, who some of their partners have been that they've helped with these trainings and things like that, so we can kind of get a sense of what the demands on our time have been, and we'd ask that questionnaire be returned the first part of this week so we can see where we're at on that. As far as the Type 3 training consistent format goes, Atlanta has done a number of the Type 3 sessions. Phoenix has. So I think between the two of us, Boise just did one. So I think we can come up with a solid agenda for these Type 3 trainings. And we also, between us all, have got different sims that can be incorporated in these trainings, so we can create kind of a catalog based upon who the audience is, whether it needs to be a wildfire simulation or all hazard. We've got several different types of all hazard sims that would be appropriate to use at that level. So it's a matter of cleaning those up, putting them in a consistent format, and making those, filing those in SharePoint or whatever platform we're going to use, so everybody has access to this catalog of simulations. Of course, the mentoring part of this is huge. And I'm still kind of scratching my head over that a little bit. I shared some initial thoughts with Bob quickly last week, but that's huge. The agency as a whole can't figure out how to do that. So we'll need to be creative with our approach on that. The team we put together. Terry and I, as well as Chris and Jean from NIMO, Vicki in her position, in her acting position at NAFRI, and we've also discussed some folks outside of NIMO, a couple of Gators, as well as somebody from some of the partner agencies that we cooperate with on these trainings. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Unless Terry, you've got some additions.
No, you've covered everything, Bruce.
So this one I think is going to be a long-term kind of ongoing task group, and I know that there's a lot of folks with a lot of passion out there and also ideas and thoughts. So I'm sure, Bruce, that you guys would welcome that, right? Any concepts papers and that sort of thing?
Yes, that'd be great. The more minds we can put to this would be great.
Okay. So I guess I will ask, because Steve has reminded me of this, would it be helpful if we take like maybe 5 minutes for people to go do a bio break? Or is everyone just getting up and doing your own thing whenever you need to? I know it's a personal question, just asking. Someone can give me an answer. Come on, guys.
This is Dana. I think a 5-minute break would be great.
Thank you, Dana. So let's go ahead and take...
I concur.
Great. It's currently, according to my computer, it's 5:36 Eastern Time. So we'll go ahead and let's do 5 minutes. If you're not back exactly in 5 minutes, I'm sure the world won't break down around you. But we'll kind of halt things for about 5 minutes and then pick back up here shortly. Okay? If you're going to talk about us, make sure you're on mute. Thanks, guys. Okay, we're back. It's 5:42 Eastern Time, so I'm going to go ahead and begin back on track where we were and start off with Task 6, which is actually the Technology X team. Sorry, not X team, Task team, which was previously the Technology X team. This is one that actually Daryl has been leading up for some time. I think he wants us to try to solicit for a new task team lead for it, but as of the last 2 years, I believe, he's been working with Bob Roth on proposing new technology to move forward to help us in fire management. So I'll turn it over to Daryl.
Finding the mute button, sorry. Yeah, it's a matter of, we've done it for about 3 years. We need some new blood leading the charge. I think there's still a lot of work to do. We've focused so far on, when we started the X team, there was a wide range of stuff people want us to look at with under the title of technology, but we focused on how we can improve situational awareness, communication in the field for people in the field, on the fire line. So it wasn't tagged at communication for a fire camp or something like, or automation of a base camp. That was not what we were trying to do. So we tied into Bob Ross' SAFE program, and SAFE stands for, I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's geared at the same thing we were looking at. Coverage, how we can better communicate information back and forth to people in the field. If they're in a remote spike camp, if they're on the line, they have information that needs to get back to the decision maker. The decision maker has information, gets to them. How can we do a better job of that? And so we focused in areas of the satellite communication system, using BeGAN satellites, and a company name of UDA. And you've heard of the UDA kits. There's other kits out there made by different companies, but it's the same technology. We focused on cameras that were cell phone and satellite modem that you could look at online real time. So you had remote cameras. We focused on devices such as the web, that you can put a link over a fire, either with an airborne device on an aircraft or some other way to put a net over the fire where you had internet capability over the entire area. And that one we barely touched on. We learned real fast you can put too much in there and get too spread out to where you can't focus on anything. So we focused on those areas to begin with. We've made a recommendation to NWCG to bring the UDA kits into the cache and make them available and support them that way. And we haven't done a good job of carrying that through with the NWCG committee, and now we don't have a representative on there. Rich Rusk was our representative there, so we've lost that. So we've got some work to do there. That's probably our immediate need, is to get that linked back up with NWCG committees, and also figure out a better way to pay for the UDA kits than what we did this past year. We kind of waited until, and they were very good to work with us, but we waited until they were due, and then we owed a bill, and we tried to figure out how to pay it. So we have to come up with, that's the two immediate needs. And then to move forward on some of the other things, like the mesh net over the fire and some other technologies we are just starting to explore. We own some. I say we own some equipment. We purchased some equipment through Bob Roth that technically NIMO bought, 2 OODA kits, and those are available to everyone. We've made those available not just to NIMO but to whoever needs them, and so those have been used quite a bit the last 2 years, and we talked about expanding. But if we expand, because they're not a cash item, that means Bob Roth is managing them, and he cannot manage, you know, a whole bunch of units and do the other job that he has. So there's those kind of issues that we need someone to work to be the lead on, and I will continue to work on them, but I think it's time for new leadership and give some other people opportunities to work on that. So that's what I'm looking for, somebody to take that over. It's exciting what's out there. We work with GETA guys quite a bit, and we work with not only Bob Roth but some of the other people with technology and development, and not just at Missoula, also the ones at San Dimas. So
Thanks,
that's
Carol.
kind of a rundown of where we are.
So I guess I'll say if anyone is interested in, has an interest in the technology and an aptitude, that's important as well, share with your IC your interest, and then the EC will discuss it as a group, who we want to assign to transition with Daryl on the test team. And I also, you'll notice up on the screen that I put, if you're interested in Googling precision information environments, envisioning the future of emergency management. I added this because this is something that, it's a video on YouTube that uses wildfire as an example of some technology that's being kind of dreamed up to be used by Pacific Northwest Laboratories as well as like DHS. And so I put it on there. It's far-fetched right now, but it's, I guess, the intent of it was to allow people's imaginations to run wild and to think outside the box on the technology piece. It's something that Bob and folks up in DC are really looking to NIMO to potentially identify and then beta test some technology to report back and determine if it's worth them investing in carrying it forward and fire it in a larger way. So, Steve, do you have anything to add to that? And I guess I'll also say last time, okay, and I will say last time we met with Bob, he also even wanted to take this further. Like right now, as Daryl had shared regarding their focus, the focus areas they've had, they've got some other focus areas that they may want the technology team to explore. And there's no need to necessarily get into that right now, but we finally have their attention, being you know, the fire director and deputy fire director, and wanting to share their thoughts and how they feel like some technology could move their vision forward. So that's kind of nice. Okay. With no questions, we'll move on to task 7, which is the Futuring Task Team. This was something that was brought to our attention when we were up in DC by Bob and Dan Olson. They want us to look at FAM and also what does 2014 look like. We need to start planning now for next year. And then also, what does the organization, FAM and NIMO, look like even a decade from now? What would that be? It's big, 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 big picture thinking, and they kind of want a think tank to help them work through some of that. So we haven't assigned it to anyone yet. We'll discuss it, but certainly if there's interest, make sure that you pass that along to your ICs or to myself. And any thoughts on that, Steve? It's a big one. Too much for me to go into right now.
Yeah, Robin, for everybody. This is tied to some things that are moving forward. I was going to kind of give a couple of these items in a closing, but I'll put them out there now. You know, part of what is happening with the openings that we have at the AD level, we're doing some discussions about some reorganization and shuffling, moving the chairs around on the deck and realignment of work areas within the ADs. And one of the proposals I put forward was that we assign 1 or 2 people permanently to strategic planning within FAM, and then this Tiger teams, these task teams would fit right into those positions. What it looks like 2014 and beyond, where we go from here, what do things look like, and as in the other technology task team, you know, what's available out there, what should we be looking at, what should we try, what should we stay away from, and just doing a lot of R&D and thinking strategically. So that is coming up, and that ties to the IT world and some of the interagency governance that's being rediscussed again. So we'll be seeing some changes in the IT world coming up in the next year or so, and their support to programs. So more to follow on that.
Good. Exciting times. So next we wanted to cover our communications. We know that one of the biggest complaints that we have year after year with our face-to-face meeting is lack of understanding or knowing what's going on. And so the EC discussed this when we were together face-to-face, trying to discover ways that we could potentially step up our communications to ensure that everyone's on the same page. So we have weekly EC calls, and that's how we do a lot of our coordination and how we'll do prioritization and resource management. But we discussed having all-hands quarterly check-ins. And unless we have something to visually share with you guys, which today was mission and vision, we thought it was really important for you guys to actually see it in writing and have discussion, which actually didn't occur, but that's okay. We will have conference calls, but at times we will try to test out new technology and explore different ways to communicate with each other. But we're going to start trying to have quarterly check-ins, and on those quarterly check-ins with everybody, we'll give an opportunity for the various task teams to kind of give updates as to where they're at, because we know not everyone will be part of a task. Not everyone will be a part of every task team, but everybody will have a task, if that makes sense. We also will use program calendar and document share. There's been a lot of discussion on what that looks like because work zone is being taken away due to budget constraints. And so we did invite Matt Gibson on to share with us the concept of using the FireNet Cloud as a potential avenue to share documents in a calendar. And though we think that there is validity in all of us getting to understand and better use cloud technology, and I think that may be some training that we can offer in the future, we have decided that we're going to use the SharePoint system because that's what FAM is using as of right now, and that's what is supported nationally within the agency. And so it's important right now to continue open communications with the ADs and transparency with Bob Baird on what our program is doing. And so in order to do that, the best way to do it is by using the same systems they are for consistency's sake. With that said, I know that we have a lot of information work zones, some of which some of you might wish to get out. currently, I think I saw the email traffic on it, but Birch is working with the CIO office on a transition plan, I guess, or a takedown plan for WorkZone. My advice to you is if you have information that you'd like to save that is currently in WorkZone, that you should start downloading that information onto your hard drive to ensure that you're able to keep it. And then at some point, we'll, hopefully in the near future, we'll have some sort of live meeting, webinar sort of training for folks on SharePoint, because it's not been known to be extremely user-friendly from what I've been told. So I guess I'll stop right there because I know WorkZone is near and dear to some folks, and so if there's any questions, I'm happy to address it. Okay. Let's see. So we'll certainly try to get things switched over then into the SharePoint system and get folks the proper training so it can be used. We will start trying to send out PDL updates regarding incident assignments so everyone knows who's assigned where and why. And then I'll be working with Iva on a monthly newsletter that will keep people updated on what the various projects, task teams, and also teams are doing. So, and we'll just email that out to the group, but we'll also try to format it and keep it professional enough that if you need to share it with folks outside of our program, then you can do that as well. So that's what we've discussed in way of communications. Before I move on, I should say that I recognize that our website is outdated. Mike Ferris and actually Mike has been working a lot with the portal group and getting our site established, and they do have our portal site established, but it's a matter of uploading information, and that also has, well, a lot of us haven't been trained to do it. So that's why it hasn't been done, but we're working towards getting control of a website that we can upload our own information to. Is Mike with us?
Hey, Robin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, I'm gonna. I've got the phone on also. Let me kill it. Hold on. Sorry about that. Hey, I've got a portal training session one-on-one on Wednesday, and I'm lacking a lot of the new NIMO autobiographies, or biographies rather, excuse me, in photos. So any of the new members in the last 6 months, if you wouldn't mind sending me your bio with a photo you'd like to use. My one-on-one on Wednesday, and anybody who's interested wants to sit in on that, it's going to be at 0800 on Pacific time. I'll send you the details. Just send me a note if you want to get a little additional training on the web portal management. But if I can get those bios and images, where I've hit a stumbling block is trying to figure out how to push up some of the other stuff like photos, graphics. So they've offered to help me kind of learn a little quicker instead of waiting for their bi-monthly training sessions that they do. So, and for that matter, if there's any material that we want on the website that's not already at NIFC, I've moved most of it already, send that to me. That way I'll start to format it and figure out how to place it onto the site. I'm in that learning stage, but I want to learn how to do this, and I'm eager to get the site up and running. It's just been a matter of not having the time to do it and missing some of their bi-monthly trainings. So having that chance to work with them for 2 hours on Wednesday is going to be huge for me, and hopefully I'll have the skill to get the rest of the material pushed up.
So the idea is to be able to have the ability.
Any questions?
Yeah, the ability for every team to be able to upload stuff.
Not
correct?
hearing me. Is anybody hearing me? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, like you're being heard.
I went mute, huh?
Mike?
You are being heard.
I think when he turned off one thing, he lost his ability to hear
Yeah,
us.
I think he can't
Provide
hear us,
feedback.
right?
I'm sorry. Mom, did you guys get any of that at all?
Yeah, we got
Hello?
every. Yeah. Are you
Oh,
there,
good.
Mike?
Okay, I'm not hearing you guys, so I didn't know if there was any questions or any feedback. I couldn't tell if you were hearing me or not. Sorry.
Yes, yes, we got everything. So that's
Okay.
that's great. Yeah, thank you for taking this on. And I guess what I was asking you is what we ultimately would like is for every team to have somebody have the ability to upload some information on our website, and then myself along with one or more people from every team, so we can try to keep it as updated as possible. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be great. The more people that are knowledgeable. You know, the thing I found with this program is that you thought GovTrip was bad. This makes GovTrip look like a walk in the park. And so I've really struggled with trying to intuitively just sit down and figure it out myself. But I'm at a point where I just can't do it. It's not working. I'm causing more errors than I'm fixing something. So the 2 hours on Wednesday will be big in that I'll be able to at least get my legs under me. And then hopefully I'll be able to cross-train anybody else that's interested.
Dumb it down for us, hopefully.
Yes.
Good. Thanks for taking that on, Mike. But I didn't add the website as part of our internal communications, but I wanted to acknowledge that that was being currently worked on. So.
Yeah, and again, I apologize for the delay. We just got to go ahead in October, and with the holidays kind of interfering and missing the biweekly trainings because of other issues, I want to get this done, so I'm trying to focus on it.
Well, you're not the sole owner of it, so no need to apologize. But thank you for taking it on. So.
Yeah. And again, anybody got material, send it my way, especially your bios, a professional-looking picture of yourself. If you don't have it, have somebody snap one and send it to me. And I can crop, so don't worry about cropping. I'm looking for headshots.
Okay.
Hey, Robin, on the calendar, can you talk about the transition timing?
So that was one of the things. I can't even remember. I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull up my email on my BlackBerry from the feedback that Birch gave versus my computer, since I'm sharing my computer with everyone. And I can't remember the time frame he said it was, but it's going to be a while. I mean, a while in regards to work zone coming down. We will start using the SharePoint calendar as soon as we get training on it. And so that's one of my objectives this week, is to schedule some training. Actually, a series is what I want to do. I'll try to get maybe an afternoon, and I don't imagine training should be more than, although I have no experience in SharePoint yet, except for being invited to one little kind of work group in SharePoint. But I don't imagine it should be more than an hour or two max. So I'll try to offer it on 3 different days, knowing that calendars are going to conflict, and this will give maximum opportunity for people to participate. That's the hope. And then after we have that training, we'll send message, obviously, through you guys, through the ICs back to the team, but and I'll send it out in the PDL, but we'll try to do a transition over a 2-week period onto the calendar, then get things up and running. And then I guess lastly, I should also mention, and it wasn't necessarily put on here, but on our weekly EC calls, IVA has started sending out the notes from our EC calls, and I hope that you guys have found that to be valuable. It was feedback we received at our last call, our last face-to-face meeting. She started providing those. She does it timely. She does a great job being thorough, to give you guys an idea. And the only thing that's extracted from those calls are really any personnel discussions, or anything that Harbor or upper leadership just doesn't want out yet, until it comes from elsewhere. But she does an excellent job in providing those, so I wanted to acknowledge that too. And I hope hope that you guys are finding it to be valuable. Okay, so that's communications. Moving on to incident assignments, this is probably something most people are interested in because we have spent a tremendous amount of time on all the other stuff. All the other stuff is 90% of our jobs. But this is certainly where incident management teams and command and general staff, and this is one of the biggies that we're tasked to do. So incident assignments, I'll open this up for any of the ICs to chime in, or if one of them wants to take it, they can from our discussion. We have decided to move forward with rotation now that we have 4 teams again. So we will begin a weekly rotation after the first call out of a team. And on the screen you see an order of how the rotation is going to initially start. So the rotation will begin with Atlanta because they didn't get any fire assignments last year, then Portland, then Boise, and then Phoenix. There was discussion and negotiation between the ICs who agreed upon this rotation, and most of the criteria for making this decision was based on fire assignments or lack of, and so we decided to begin the rotation that way. Once the first team's called out, Atlanta, then we'll begin a weekly rotation from there. And then the third team, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move this piece off of my screen from, okay. Then the third team, after no more than 3 teams will be assigned. So once the third team is assigned, that fourth team kind of stays as a pool resource for the 3 teams that are currently out or the project team. Now with that said, let's say, I'm going to just use this as an example, Atlanta, Portland, Boise all get assignments. Phoenix is sitting there as pool resources. So if, let's say, Portland's assignment is a long-term assignment and they need relief, then Phoenix is going to be the feeder team for them. But if it doesn't come out that anyone needs a feeder team because everyone's in the Southwest and the fire durations are, or Southeast and Southwest, whatever that looks like, and the fire durations are short, and there's not a need for a feeder team, once one of them comes off, maybe Portland comes off before Atlanta, who knows, but once one of them comes off, they go in back on deck as the feeder team, and then the fourth team goes up as the next on rotation, and so on and so forth. So that's how we're going to do it this year now that we have 4 teams on deck. We do recognize that there will potentially be rotation exceptions before anyone says. I know people have built relationships with certain regions, certain people, no different than any other incident management team. Some regions are going to want theirs or wait until they come up on rotation, theirs being the team they've built relationships with. There's a perception, or maybe it's not a wrong perception, but that some teams have expertise in some areas more so than others. Whatever that looks like, if there appears to be a request for a specific team that would break the rotation, then myself, Steve Gage, and the IC who's up on rotation, as well as the IC being requested, will have a dialogue about it to determine if it's something that we should do to break rotation. And so we will have a thoughtful discussion about it to make that determination. And so I guess I should break there because I figured the rotation is going to be potentially the most confusing piece of this. So I'll open it up for comments.
Hey, Robin, this is Bill. One thing I'm not sure of is, say if a team is due to come up and they have, for whatever reason, someone's sick, family emergency, that kind of thing, I know you would try and fill from the others who have some people on the bench, but what if you can't pull the C and G together? It just goes on to the next team then?
Yeah, we're going to have to.
Okay.
Judith has her hand raised, so Judith, did you join us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure if this is working. Just 1 second. I have a contractor that walked in the door. We have to get something for him. Do you want to go on the next question and then come back to me?
Sure, I'm happy to. So anyone else have any comments or questions regarding the rotation?
Robin, can you hear me? This is Gene.
Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Robin, first of all, I appreciate everything that you've done to put this webinar on. I really do appreciate it, find it very valuable. On this particular item, how is this going to balance out with what we've been trying to do the past year or so, going with the closest available resource? Is that a conflict, or are we just going to stick with the rotation and on incident assignments and for any other task assignment that's given to us, go with the closest available resource?
So for incident assignment, it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, unless obviously there's
right.
A situation where they need like immediate. But as far as like task team or project assignments or risk management or whatever, I mean, certainly that's going to be a consideration as we do assigning. A lot of the work that we do isn't necessarily outside of the risk management session. I need to mute somebody. Anyway, a lot of that work doesn't necessarily even have to include travel. And I'll get to this as part of our travel budget in some of this discussion. But it's definitely the way we're going to have to do business from here on out, closest resource. But with incident assignments, we're going to just try to stick to the rotation unless, of course, for example, let's say Atlanta wasn't on #1 and Region 8 wants Atlanta for a hurricane. Then we'll go to the rotation exception format where myself and Steve and the 2 ICs get together and have that discussion and see if it makes more sense. But I appreciate you bringing it up because it's something we've tried to drill in everyone's head, and it's still in fact even more important now than ever. But I think one of the other things we need to discuss or actually look at as a group is we've got to stop traveling or going places for 30 minutes or an hour just to have face-to-face discussion. And as valuable as that is in building relationships, and we all acknowledge it's extremely valuable, we're going to have to be very prudent in how we approach these sort of things and start getting creative and start using more video conferencing and Microsoft Link capability, which allows you to do up to like 50 video conferencing with folks. So that's all things we're going to have to explore.
Sure, and I'm not looking for a hard and fast answer. I understand this will be more art than science perhaps at times for you and the ICs and Steve to contemplate, but I think it's a good point of discussion for the group to understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I do know that we have Chris on deck and Judith as well. I'm going to go to Judith, Chris, and then we'll unmute you. You're the one who was giving us feedback, so I just want you to figure that out first. So we'll give Judith the floor real quick.
Hi, Robin. My question was similar to Jean's, but it's a little bit different. I guess what I'm wondering is, for the teams, are we still trying to work on blending the teams when we take incident assignments and look for that, or are we trying to stick with our regular teams?
So there's a lot of value to both. So I don't know if there's a a right answer, but I will say the way you guys will be rostered will be with your regular teams. But we will have the feeder team, the fourth team, whatever that is at the time, to be able to fill in any holes. And then I haven't gotten to all of the other, I'll go through some of the things we may be expected to do this year, as well as different ways we can fill out our teams. But that's definitely part of the discussion, because we're challenged with a lot of vacancies right now, and then the blending is something we've emphasized for so long, and it's, I think, proven to actually be really helpful for us to get to know each other better and work together and develop trust and learn from one another.
Yeah, and I know that happened last year to a greater degree, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that definitely happened. Probably wasn't actually comfortable for a lot of folks, but it happened out of necessity because of the extreme vacancies we had essentially in 2 teams. So we only had 2 teams available. And last year we really had no ability to even do a rotation with only having 2 teams. So we did I think we did a decent enough job blending to try to give people opportunity.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judith. So, Chris, I'm going to unmute you. Chris, are you there? Chris Erickson. Okay. We somehow lost Chris here. Sorry, I was going to write Chris back because she had written me, obviously, but if someone can just let Chris know, we're happy to let her speak. I just think maybe we lost her somehow when she was trying to deal with feedback. Okay.
Hey, Robin, while we're waiting, I have a quick question.
Sure, Curtis.
Hey, so one of the things that I think will come up next week when we're talking to the IMTs about the 2013 guidance is, hey, will you guys be able to come help us do this risk assessment? They being the IMT, we being NIMO. And I'd like to be able to give them an answer, and I'd like for that answer to be yes. If 1 or 2 of us would go out on a team's request and help them complete risk assessment and get comfortable and start some of that real-time learning and sharing. Is that an option? Does that make any sense? Is that something we should promote or shy away from?
So
this is Steve. I'll give you an answer on that one. I think the answer would be yes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would want to say yes, but we haven't discussed it as an EC, but that sounds, that would be great if an IMT actually said they wanted us to go with us.
Well, and Robin, I'll use this as a segue for, this whole piece of, one of the things that we discussed, and one of the things that may be the reality of what goes on this summer, is we may have a team assigned or we may have no teams assigned, and we may be broke up into teams of 2 or 3 people out doing just what Curtis talked about, helping other IMTs with risk management. We may be sliding in to help regions. We may be helping forests work their way through that with the decision making. We may be sliding in to ask questions, be prompters, again, to be that agent of change and to be leadership. So if that does come up,
I'm back here, Deb. I'm on a webinar. It's all right. I'm muted. What's up?
But think about how they would just need to place the order just like they would anything else. Get a hold of Robin, put it up through the system. We need to ask, what does the mission look like? So then we can match the right people to the mission. So long answer to a very short answer. How's that?
Was that good, Curtis?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that works for me. I just want to, I think it's going to come up, and I think that's the right answer. Yeah, we'll help you. We can work out the details later if it actually does happen, but that's all I need for next week. Thank you.
Yeah, Curtis, I think the key there is if they ask for help, they may not get 7 people on a whole team. You know, they're going to get what they need to complete their mission because there may be 2 or 3 others asking for the same thing.
Hey, this is Nick. I have a question for the group.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who was it that was trying to talk?
Yeah, Robin, this is Nick. I just had a question for the folks that are on with us today.
Okay, Nick, I heard you, but you're actually kind of...
Wondering if anybody yeah, it sounds like somebody's in the bathroom, at least on my machine, and it's not me. But anyway, I was wondering if anybody individually or as a team has been asked to go out and work with the forest on those assessments before, and that's just an open question.
Nick, I don't think that anybody, I think it's going to come up more after the chief's letter comes up. Once you see the content.
Okay, because we've been asked for a couple of years to do that by forest, and then actually because of those relationships been called back by agency administrators to assist assigned teams in that effort. So I think that's something we ought to keep in mind, is that if we don't get requested by forest, if in the preseason work, that there's always an option that we can respond, especially when the teams were not quite fully intact like they were in the past year or so. It was easy for a couple people to do that. In fact, we've done several of those mostly remotely. So there's a way to assist even if we can't get around preseason to help everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Nick. And I know that has been done in the past, and I think that will continue on. I hope it will be. So I guess, we're going to be asked, as Steve had said, to do a lot of different things, and he had mentioned, we may have to do WO support regional and forest. It may not even be managing a fire, maybe helping do exactly what Curtis had mentioned and splitting a few people out and helping out some of the teams that are out there. But I think the key in all of that is adaptability and flexibility is expected. And there are a lot of things being tossed around and best uses on how to use NIMO within the fire directors as well as at the WO level as far as discussion goes. And I think the one thing that is really positive is that a lot of people want to use us, and that's a good thing. So anyway, and also we put on here right of refusal. That was something Steve asked that we added. It's something that has been exercised by NIMO, but if it's certainly an assignment that they feel that they're not capable to do because of rostering, staffing, or it's just an inappropriate configuration with NIMO, then, or not to mention just complexity, because we are a short team, really, then certainly you have that right of refusal. Yes.
This is Deanna, and actually Chris sent me a note, so I have one question. So she wants to know how we're going to solve the issue of not being able to field a team during planning number 4 and 5 when we don't carry enough operations people. We plan for how NIMO will configure this summer when that happens.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to repeat yourself, but first I'm going to mute everybody because there's this buzzing noise from somebody, and it's drowning you out. So I'm going to mute everyone, and then I'm going to unmute you, Dana, to see what you said. Okay? Stand by.
Muted.
Okay, Dana, you have the floor.
Okay, so this is a question from Chris. How are we going to solve the issue of not being able to field a team during planning level 4 and 5 when we don't carry enough operations people? Do we have a plan for how the NIMO will configure this summer when that happens?
Good question and beautiful segue to our next slide. So for 2013, there's multiple options for filling out our teams in a long configuration. That was discussed with the EC, and I'll go through it, and certainly any of the ICs can. Here, I don't know if I should unmute everybody, or if anyone has something to say, they can raise their hand, and the people who came in as staff have the ability, I think, to unmute folks. So, but anyhow, so we can use, as in the past, established type 2 teams who voluntarily want to come out. And there's a few scenarios with that. The NIMO has developed relationships in the past with really green type 2 teams, such as Georgia and some of those folks. They are still willing and available to come out with the NIMO program. We do recognize that the ability to use them would probably be as a second-tier team, meaning after 14 days, if we have a long configuration and we need to bring in another team, then that would be the time to bring them in as a second tier to it, just because their rostering and getting available is a little bit more challenging in those regards. But then there's also other type 2 teams, Western nationally rostered type 2 teams, who, believe it or not, are interested in coming out with NIMO. They see it as a professional development opportunity, especially for many of their C&G who have type 1 task books, and they're just interested in doing it. So they have said that the problem or challenge with those teams is they also are already on a rotation, and any use of them, it would be easier, obviously, in region to use them, but it would have to be negotiated with the GAC to free them up and get them off rotation, because that could potentially cause problems with other teams that are on rotation and potentially higher up on rotation than they are. So we recognize that as an issue, and it's something that the ICs will need to discuss with the fire directors, and as we're having those discussions. There is also a discussion about building a roster of mentees. We have a lot of folks who we've worked with in the past that we'd like to mentor, and we can build rosters in ROS. Beyond, we can build our short team rosters, which are already in there, and then long team rosters. So there's discussion in doing that. There's discussion in building a roster in each region of leftover applicants for the teams. So the truth is that's going to be sporadic as far as positional, and then we'd have to go to another system to build a roster ahead of time, but that's still the intent. And then I think the one that I like the most, that I thought was fascinating, and I'll open it up for Hausman to jump in on this one, especially because he's the one who brought it to the table, was kind of this idea of emerging incident management type 1 trainee teams in each region. And it's something, I guess, that Bob had discussion with the fire director, Sue Stewart, about in Region 4, and they actually brought it up as an idea. And I guess I'll open it up. Huh. I guess I muted everyone and have total control. Here. I'm going to unmute some folks here. And so I think that that is a real possibility, is Region 4 had talked about building this emerging incident management type 1 trainee and rostering for it to be a team that was a trainee team, and then use them. And I'll open it up. Steve, I've unmuted you, but Hausman also, I've unmuted him as well. I'm going to go through and start unmuting people. I'm having a hard time talking and focusing.
Hey, Robin, this is Bob.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on what you were sharing there, because actually it's something that they are discussing or have been discussing today when they've met to determine their team configurations there in Region 4. But the proposal was laid out last fall to consider, and they actually have done this, is downsize 6 to 5 of their Type 2 teams this year. That'll remain with 2 Type 1s in Region 4 in the Great Basin. But what they want to do is take and build a Type 2 trainee team for advancing to Type 1 level over the next 2 years. This is in concert with what's going on at EIM right now. And they're looking to us as a program to provide mentorship to that team. And I think one of the beauties of this is what the folks muted and fulfill it, then they'll advertise it as trainees working with a NIMO team in a mentorship role. And so the folks that would sign up for this would, on the front end, willingly put themselves in the position of working with us as a program. And so I entertained that discussion with them at their ops meeting last November. They seemed fairly positive about moving forward with that, but they haven't made a final decision on it and probably won't until after today's selections. So it is yet forthcoming, but again, I think it's a great opportunity for us. One, it helps to build our team up. If we go out on an assignment, we'll have perhaps a team there at the Great Basin that we could take with us. And the reverse would be true, that if they get an assignment as a trainee team, then we would then be asked to go with them. It may not be in delegation. It may just be as a support mentorship role, or it could also be certainly a delegation that NIMO would have. So that was one of those kind of a unique options that would be available for us for rostering over this next year or two.
And Steve, you're unmuted now. In fact, everyone's unmuted again except for Tom Johnson and Chris, because that's where we're getting back. So I think for the most part.
And Robin, I think to answer Chris specifically, when we roll into PL4 and 5, chances are any NIMO teams not currently assigned with sufficient operational or other support to their organization. And that sustainable support is when we shift into our mission of support to the WO, support to the region, support to the forest, and we become that force multiplier. And again, we'll have to think quickly on our feet as we move through that. And we won't be able to do all that can, anything that might come up, I don't think we could think of all of them right now, but just be assured that as they come, as opportunities arise, we'll take them as they come, and we'll make the best of it and the most of it.
What are you doing underneath there?
Hopefully that answered Chris's question.
Let's see. What are you doing there, big dog?
Chris?
Big dog.
I don't know who's talking to the big dog, but everyone's unmuted.
This is Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it. I'm trying to figure out, does that mean, you talked something last year about actually trying to roster. What happens is with all of these options as we get later into the season, and all of those options become not available when we're busy and we're back in the same place we were before. So you had mentioned that there might be the possibility that we would actually try to lock in and roster some, especially ops and divisions, to avoid that problem, or are you suggesting that we just see what happens, and then if we can't, which if we have another busy season, the same thing's likely to happen, do we just break up and go as individuals, or just sit home and wait to be sent out if another NIMO team needs us?
Chris, I think the answer to your question is yes. We're going to try some of each and all of those, except for sitting at home waiting. We will actively seek employment for everybody because I can tell you the WO is really interested in getting us out, visiting with teams that are on the ground, visiting with the forest, visiting with the regions, and providing the WO with feedback and up to the chief's office. They really trust our feedback, and so we may get to PL3 or PL2, and we may be told that none of the teams will take a fire assignment, that we will all be eyes and ears and will be mission tasked to do other things. So wish I could give you the absolutes, but there aren't any. We did talk about trying to roster and build a bigger roster. Bob Baird and I are going to talk about that a little bit, some more. If that's a good viable option, maybe build one support roster that we can use as a program. But there's been no final answer on that yet.
Chris, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, as much as it can. I mean,
right. Well, and that goes with everything we do.
I guess my big concern, and I know that you know this and Steve knows this, is that our mission has in the past said management of large complex fire. Well, if as soon as it becomes large and complex, we can't go manage anything because we don't have the people, then that becomes not a viable mission for us. So it's sort of like, even now that goal we determined being a response force is in jeopardy if we can't actually field a team when the moment comes. And so I'm saying either we have to figure out how to field it or we have to change the mission. That's all.
Well, and Chris, that's back to those original, points of when NIMO was established. And I think we've all realized that there are times when that's not a viable option for us. So that's why we've looked at the mission and the vision to be that agent of change and a force multiplier, and maybe not so much.
Which I understand, but there's still one goal in there. I forget what it is. Number 4, it was down near the bottom that refers to it as providing a response force, and that's what I was referring to, not the implementation.
Yeah, but a response force can be perceived. I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah, you're exactly, Robin. You're right on track with where I was going.
Yeah.
That has different meanings.
Yeah, so a response force may be to manage at a GAC level or a regional level or something to that effect. It doesn't necessarily mean a long type 1 team configuration either. And that's where we just have to shift our mindset some, I think. It doesn't mean that we're not either. That's why we've gone through various options and being able to provide long-term configuration. But we need to do it cleaner than what we've done in the past, and we know that. So that's why, like Bob is working with Sue, and the ICs are talking to, I know Q has gone down to meet with the folks down in Region 8, but everyone's talking to the various fire directors to try to figure out what would work best in that region in the event that they wanted NIMO for long team configuration.
Okay.
Robin, just in reference to what Chris was mentioning this last year, I mean, the Phoenix team went through that on at least 2 different incidents where we had to build up a team from scratch. One of the 3 incidents, we had a Type 2 team tied to us. But building it from scratch can be done. It's just a significant challenge as you work it through, even on a long-term complex incident such as the Halstead. We used everything from the rostering to start out with, to name request mentees, to those that we knew would be available, to using ROS. And one of the things I just want to emphasize under that construct, it was a significant drain and challenge for the team to continue that rotation. One of the elements that we really fell back on, it was difficult most of all, was the C&G level. And that's finding that backup support at the Type 1 level that you need to keep rolling in there to give your folks a break. And that's why I strongly support, if we were to roll back into a 2012 event again this coming year where we are requested for long-term duration, or even for a couple weeks, 3 weeks at a time, if it looks like the team assigned to that, whatever Team Line B is going to need some either a replacement NIMO team or individual position replacements to come in and give them a break. We need to be prepared as best we can to back that up. And that's why I personally like the 3-to-1 ratio that we've discussed. If we were to get 3 teams out, even if they are blended teams, and we've done that very well in the last 2-3 years, we've demonstrated how we can do that. But if we get 3 teams mixed, whatever they are out, what's left over out there needs to be committed to supporting that, be able to roll in there and provide that backup. Because that was probably the most significant element of concern and challenge that we ran into, most especially on the Halstead, to some degree on Whitewater, but most especially on Halstead.
And that sort of, if I can just say one more thing, Robin, it brings me to one of it. I guess it's sort of a pet peeve of mine, but I know it's been an issue for some other people, that we have always said one of the strengths of having NIMO come to a long-term incident is that we reduce the number of transitions because we can stay the duration, which is true and sort of not true. To us, in the way we perceive ourselves as an organization, it's true. We're just rotating NIMOs through. But in terms of people who see us on the ground, when we say we don't transition, they expect the same faces there. And so I realize that part of that is resetting that expectation and having that discussion, but I know that it has been an issue with local communities and the forest soups and fire directors who said, well, I thought we had you come because we thought you were going to stay. And we're saying, well, we are staying because we're NIMO in general. And if you see where I'm going, I think we just need to be clearer with people that having NIMO here doesn't mean the same faces. And in fact, there is transition involved. We still have to transition with each other. There is still, we still have to share information and bring people up to speed the same way as other people. It just isn't with a different team. So I just guess I encourage people to be careful about saying that, well, we don't transition, because we do.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Chris. That's something that's changed in the recent future, recently.
Hey, Robin?
Yes.
Just a thought that goes along with, at least on the roster-wise, but wherever, it's like during reviews that we're talking about incorporating in and some of these other assignments, wherever possible, it's back to we ought to try to include some of those other personnel from incident management teams, a mixture from different regions that are all possible for whatever duration they may be available. But the more we can be inclusive, the more learning we all do and helping whatever the task may be that we're supposed to be helping in.
Any other comments? I think everyone.
Robin, this is Gene. I do have one question here, and I know there's many ways to roster a team, but I just wonder, is there a way perhaps for Harbor to ask the regions to identify those people with task books that are close to completion? It seems that there are a number of people out there, and this, over the last 2 months, I've run into quite a few people that have open task books and are getting near their 3rd or 5th year, and they have several bullets to complete, otherwise they're going to go belly up or have to request an extension or be SOL. It would seem that there would be an opportunity there for us to have those people identified and then tap into them when we do deploy into a region to get them out, even for a week or so, to finish up their task book and, at least in theory, expand the resource pool.
That's a great suggestion, Gene, and I don't know that anyone's approached Harbor or anyone. It's something that we could, I think, work through Nick, at least, to get a list of folks who have trainee and have been trainees for a certain period of time, to identify those individuals, but we haven't done that.
Really, that are very close, and it could be an extension of the mentor program or however you wanted to frame it, but it just seems like we're going to lose those people and we're right back where we don't want to be.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. There was also some discussion, just so you guys know, we didn't take it off the table, but there was a discussion about us putting out a national application to be rostered with NIMO, the program, and us building rosters then for you guys, the teams, to grab when the time came. We decided not to pursue that this year because we haven't laid any groundwork with the regions and or GACs, and we feel like that we should have some discussions before we do that. So it's kind of where we are as far as configurations. There are a lot of, it's a work in progress, but there's a lot of things in the works. And I think one of the things that if all goes well in 4, maybe we'll try to request Sue to potentially step up to the fire directors and share what they're doing in 4. It was their idea, it wasn't ours, but it's a great idea with their Type 1 trainee team, and potentially suggest it to the others, and maybe some will follow suit, and that would be beneficial for us. Any other?
Hi, this is Brant. Yeah, can you hear me? This is Brant. This is Brant.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Brant.
As I've talked to a lot of folks that have been on Type 1 teams, they've got bumped or are planning to get bumped in the team selection process, where their ADs and their teams are now looking to fill as many possible with agency type people. So I'm not suggesting use of ADs, but I know there's going to be a whole bunch of skilled people who will be looking for assignments now as independent folks, not on a team. Just so you're aware of that part too.
Certainly may be helpful for us if we have to go into the system requesting folks, right? At least for this year. I do know Steve, being our boss now and AD of Ops, that I would assume that's one of the taskings he has, is to continue to encourage use of agency folks as much as possible versus ADs. Steve, is that right?
Well, again, it doesn't exclude ADs, but like we tried to do last year, if we utilize an AD, we need to try to drag a trainee with them, and again, to replenish what's going forward.
Good point. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's being discussed and what we're looking at then in ways of configuration for incident assignments. And then we have our personnel updates that I wanted to provide you, really because that's going to impact all of the project work, our work plan, as well as incident assignments, or potentially, because we still have holes in IC and plans on the Boise team, and now logistics in Portland. And because of the transition from AView to eRecruit, for those who are unaware, AView has currently, I don't know if it's actually lawsuits or what it is, but they're currently arguing that all of the PDs that were in AView, that they have proprietary rights over them and that we can't use those position descriptions. So during the transition between both AView and eRecruit, the Forest Service HR folks focused, majority of their focus were on the position descriptions that involve the greater mass of folks, right? So fuels tech positions or timber or whatever that looks like. And those were the priorities to get into the new eRecruit system because they affected the greater masses. The positions such as the NIMO PDs, where there are only 4 positions per position description, were obviously not high priority. So those have not been rewritten and reclassified to be put into eRecruit, because every PD had to be completely rewritten, and that means like no duplication of words in the same sentence or anything, and then reclassified and placed into the system. As far as fire and aviation management goes, we are, I think, like number 5, number 6, and number 7 is what we are on priority list for FAM to submit forward for that rewrite and reclassification. I am already working with the personnel staff, and so we didn't completely have to reinvent the wheel. We are actually had worked with FEMA to get the PDs from the IMATs, and they're old PDs because they also just restructured and are hiring new positions and so on and so forth. But to use as a base for our PDs. It's only a base, though, because the IMATs don't actually, they're not ICS CNG qualified positions. They don't actually manage incidents. They're a coordination effort. They're almost like an area command, which we do function in a good majority of the time, but there is a considerable amount of rewrite that has to be done. And then after that, we go to reclassification. With that said, it'll likely be summertime before we get any of these positions flown, which doesn't put us in a good timeline for actually having the positions filled, obviously, before fire season. So we're looking at alternatives and what to do in filling these jobs, certainly on the project management side and or on the incident response side. There is the potential that we'll be able to detail into the vacancies. With that said, we can't even detail until the PDs get in the system. So they have to be rewritten and reclassified. That may be late spring, and then we can detail in until the positions are actually flown and filled. So that's kind of what we're looking at for our vacancies. It's just a condition of the situation between eRecruit and AView, and unfortunately, since our program just has their specialized PDs, it's put us at a disadvantage in that regard. So before I move on, are there any questions or anything regarding personnel? Okay. And then with the GETA positions, I know there's a lot of people who've been wondering, what the heck's happening with GETA? The guys are still with us and still doing great work and working with us on and off whenever they have availability and can. They're constantly recruiting and training new folks to assist us in working on our job code and just doing some detailing in that regard. The GETA positions themselves were, as many of you know, initially flown and then rescinded because they were term positions, and because in the current state of affairs, putting permanent folks in term positions aren't wise for them or for us to put them in that position. But most recently, when we were in DC, I had a discussion with Dan Olson, who's the new deputy director, fire director, who said as they were going back and reviewing the org chart that the term on the GETA positions has been removed, and they think that if we are interested or willing to fly it, that we could potentially fly them as is. And so that's what we're going to pursue. The next quest, the part of the quest, is there is a prioritization that has to be done with all positions. These are more likely because we use a standard fuels tech PD for them, and then modify them within 80. I mean, we don't modify them more than 80%, or we do less than a 20% modification on them. That's what I should say. So we're allowed to use a standard PD for them. So those may potentially go forward if we get approval from prioritization from the ADs and the deputies and so on and so forth, even before other vacancies go. But that's something that I'll have to explore with Steve, and we'll have to put forward on the personnel call with the WO. But that's good news. So that's my personnel updates. In regards to using GETA right now, we, the EC and myself, are trying to work with you guys as much as possible in figuring out what the needs are, and Matt's taken on a big role in trying to assess requests and skill sets and try to recruit folks to help out, while Billy and Colby and even himself has been tasked with you know, other priorities in their current jobs and or jobs that they are detailing into. So I guess I'll give the floor real quick to Geta, and then Judith, I see your hand is raised, so I'll go to you next.
Hey Robin, this is Matt and Billy. Appreciate that and all the work that you guys have done over the years to make that happen, and the term dropping off, that's huge news. To us, it represents success as a group and a program. There's a few things I'd like to just take a quick second and say. We've gotten several phone calls, and by several, you know, 10 plus, and a few emails that say that Get a Group was disbanded. And those are interesting when they come in, and I think some of them have originated, whether misspoken or misheard, from NIMO itself. And so I just ask that everyone be aware that we still exist. And, you know, if anyone has any questions about exactly how we're operating, they can feel free to call Billy or myself. But we're still around, even informally. In fact, our group is getting bigger by the day, informally. It's the paid side that it has been problematic, on the funded side through NIMO. But all that's working out. We're looking forward to the challenges ahead, and it's been extremely busy. Billy's been tasked a huge amount at the jump base, along with Colby in their normal work. And starting a week from today, I'll be detailed in at the Northern Rockies Training Center as a training specialist. So it's going to be interesting coordinating things. If you guys have requests, you'll likely see new faces and new names. And we're trying to vet those folks' skills with the assignments. But we're excited about it, and we think we found some good folks for you.
Good. Thanks for all your continued support and hard work. And I'm glad to have new people on board. Always good to train more, right? Okay, so Judith, you had your hand raised.
Yes, well, first of all, Matt, we will definitely spread the word that you guys are not disbanded and that you are alive, well, and fully engaged. So that's good to know that. The question I had, Robin, has to do with your last slide. We didn't quite get to that last bullet. Maybe we touched on it, but it has to do with NIMO and Type 1 teams. And it seems like that topic has always kind of been the big elephant in the room. And it has been since we started this program. And how NIMO operates with a Type 1 team. So what I'm wondering is, I wanted to ask you and Steve, have you had any specific conversations or discussions about this with the regional fire directors and others in this last year? And or do you see the need to really have some focused dialogue on that topic to address some of the issues that keep coming up with the placement of those two groups together?
And Judith, this is Steve. To answer the first part about, we have had some discussion. I have had some discussion with the regional fire directors regarding this issue or this topic. It's not well understood. There may be some conversation at the National HCIC meeting coming up in a couple of weeks about this topic, if it gets approved, the meeting management package anyway. And so this will be an ongoing process. You know, we've had some hiccups and difficulties as we've gone along. And it's part of the learning experience and the utilization. So I think as part of a social experiment, You know, let's say we've tried it a couple times and it didn't work too well, but that doesn't mean we will quit trying. So, but there's nothing hard and fast.
I guess I'll also add in addition to that when putting this bullet in, one of the other considerations was a situation just as Curtis had mentioned earlier. If another team approaches us and wants NIMO or some folks from NIMO to join them to help them like with the risk assessment and that sort of thing, that's also another format or way that we can be used.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for the question. Was there anything else on personnel? I appreciate you guys the GETA's taking time out to join us too, since I think of them as part of the program. So didn't know you guys were disbanded either, so I apologize if that somehow got out.
Hey, Robin?
Yeah.
Just one last thing, I guess. Billy and I will still kind of coordinate efforts or calling one or the other of us. If you have a task or an assignment, we'll still work, and you know, the main caution here is just to understand that it's unlikely it'll be the Billy, Matt, Colby, or even Andy show on some of those, but we will find you folks that can do the work. So
and I should add to that too, Matt. I would prefer if everyone went through their IC or myself and put in a request explaining what you guys need from GETA so we can coordinate with Matt and Billy on who and what, and that allows us to also prioritize use of GETA because you guys have in the past gotten a ton of direct requests, but some are for very specific projects when we've had larger scale projects that could potentially be a good use of your time, better use of your time from a priority perspective. So just as other projects, let's try to run it through the EC as much as possible, and then we'll coordinate with you guys if that's cool.
Yep, that would work great for me.
Yep, I thought it might.
Thanks, Robin.
Okay, so and the next is travel budget. This should be fairly cut and dry. There's no secret that the federal government is in trouble. There was a letter that was sent out about sequestering earlier. Probably a lot of folks who don't even curious what that's going to mean for us or our program and so on and so forth. But we have serious budget woes, and one of the things that our agency, the Forest Service, has tried to do instead of cutting positions is they really try to focus on cutting unnecessary programs, cutting unnecessary funding to certain things, or funding that doesn't have an immediate need right now. And travel is another place that they've really tried to slice pretty heavily. So each team member is going to have $20,000 travel budget this year. That's what we're aiming for. We cut our budget pretty extensively last year. Our NIMO travel budget is $250,000 per team, $1 million total. And this isn't necessarily anything that you guys have to sweat out yourselves because I look at the numbers all the time. But nevertheless, we got it down last year, but this was, keep in mind, almost a full team of vacancies. We had close to 7 vacancies, but we got it down to about $489,000 last year, so we cut it in half. We also recognize that what included people being on P codes and a good majority of several of the months, and we also have a lot of vacancies filled, so we know that that's probably not going to be possible this year. But as of right now, we're aiming for $20,000 per person, and some folks travel more than others. Some folks, their expenses are higher than others just based on their location. We'll continue to try to use closest resource if possible. Take that into consideration when you're putting together your task teams or looking at specific duties for individuals. As far as meeting travel goes, only travel to high priority meetings, or if it's accessible, within driving distance or close by, certainly it makes sense. But definitely make sure that it's worthy of more than just a 30-minute speech, or look for an alternate way to do it. Learn to use video capability through Microsoft Link. I had mentioned that earlier. It's taken place of Communicator and will be pushed to all computers if you haven't downloaded it yourself already. And offer virtual presentations, and let's set the example out throughout the organization on how virtual presentations can be done successfully. And that will, those sort of things will be what allows the Forest Service to try to keep from furloughing or laying off people. I know that was a heavy load, and I don't mean to run through it, but they're numbers that I watch, and if we start getting in trouble, I do talk to the ICs about it. Luckily, I didn't have to last year because we were doing really well with it. And so if we continue to be that careful this year, I think we're going to be okay. Any questions or thoughts? Steve, do you have any insight or anything you want to add on this one?
Yeah, just know that one of the difficulties is our new accounting system has not been able to produce any reports on travel agency-wide yet, and we may not have seen all of the travel caps, so there may be more on this.
Thank you. Start thinking outside the box, I guess, right? That's all we can do, and still try to provide or meet the tasks that we've been requested to meet. So, and then I guess this is really the piece where we start to close it out. So I'm going to hand it over to Steve. This is his baby. But before we do, and Steve, I'll let you completely wrap it up, and then we'll end it from there. But before we do, I just want to thank everyone for giving this a shot. Obviously, with Office like live meetings and webinars, there's more than just one PowerPoint. It's often a lot of different visuals and a lot of different computers sharing their stuff. But I really wanted to challenge everybody just to take the time to try a web meeting if you haven't done it already, because I think we're going to have to start using this type of technology in order for us to be successful in a virtual program environment, as well as with the travel constraints we have. So thanks for doing it. I know we had some bumps in the road, and I had a hard time multitasking, believe it or not, watching the screen and trying to talk at the same time. So I apologize for that. Steve, I'm handing it over to you.
Hey Robin, just one thing. Josh McDaniels, thanks for your help getting us going with all this, the technology, and your support. Worked well.
Definitely. Bill, yes. Thank you, Josh. I'm so sorry I failed to mention him, but he was wonderful and has worked with me a day or two just to make sure that we've been lined up. So thanks, Josh.
Oh, no problem. Glad to help in any way I can. Anytime you guys need some help, just let me know.
Okay, thanks. So Gage, help me out here. Where are we going?
Again, thanks everybody for your patience and sticking with it. I know we didn't get to everybody's questions and concerns, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions and still a lot of squishy stuff that we don't have hard answers to, but I think it's just a sign of the times, and we'll get through a lot of this. I think that in these last two slides that Robin put together for us, and I helped her put together, was this. This is the one I talked about earlier, and that's agent of change and being that change agent. And this talks about how we treat people and how we treat each other, and organizational trust. And if you haven't already thought about a new book to read, because I know we haven't talked about a whole lot of that, but there's a new book by Stephen M.R. Covey called The Speed of Trust. And then there he talks about organizational trust and self-trust and those kinds of things, and building relationships within organizations. And that's a key point in that agent of change as we move through that. And Robin, can I have the next slide? And again, this is just the handwriting on the wall from Who Moved My Cheese. Think about this as we move forward. That change happens. You know, somebody's going to move our cheese. We don't have control over all of our cheese. I wish we did. But we all work in a hierarchical. We won't have control over all the cheese. Anticipate that change. Be out thinking ahead of it. Monitor the change. Think about where we're going, how it's affecting us, how we can adapt to change quickly and move forward. Then we become that. Then we change. We become that change agent. We enjoy change. If you don't enjoy change, it may not be the place for you. I mean, that's just part of our thoughtful life, because we're going to change quickly. And be ready to quickly change again and again and again. So I know it's not comfortable for everybody, and I don't always like it, but I've learned that it's going to happen. So things are going to change. And if there are no further burning questions that we haven't answered, don't be afraid to email, push questions up the chain, don't let it get away from us, those kinds of things. Thanks again for everybody hanging in. I know it's late on the East Coast for Robin and Bob and Q, and those of us that are farther to the west, it's getting late in the evening. We're almost at least one long neck behind, if not two. So remember what F. Scott Fitzgerald said, that the world only exists in your eyes, your conception of it. You can make it as big or as small as you want it to be. So again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you on the big one or the next one.
Thanks, Steve. Bye, everyone.
Bye.